Back for more Bay Sunday now. It's not easy running a city, especially when it comes down to dollars and cents. Our political pundit, Melissa Griffin Caen, sat down with San Francisco's treasurer, Jose Cisneros, to get the skinny on where the buck stops in the city.
Welcome to City Treasurer Jose Cisneros. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, so we have lots of exciting stuff to talk about today, but before we begin, could you please just tell us, what do you do? What does the city treasurer do?
Well, I'd be happy to explain. The full title for the office is Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, and it's really the tax collector part that keeps us busy most of the time. We literally collect almost all the revenue for the city, all the taxes, all the fees. Billions of dollars of revenue get collected by our office, and we really understand and take very seriously how important that responsibility is to make sure the city has all the funds it needs to be successful. The treasurer side of the title is, once we bring that money in, we put the money in the bank and we keep it safe for the city. We manage the city's short-term portfolio, probably similar to the money that most of us have in our checking account. Short-term funds that come in 1 month, stay around for a little while, and then go out to pay salaries, fees, expenses, whatever. The portfolio we manage for the city is average size, averages between $6 or $7 billion on any given day. So we have a couple of big responsibilities to keep the city's money safe and to bring it in effectively.
So this year, we've got some very exciting news on the tax collection side. I know I might be the first person in history to make that statement, but here in San Francisco, we are in the middle of a transition from a payroll tax-based system to a gross receipts tax system. Could you describe what that means and why that's important?
Sure, absolutely. This is probably the biggest change to the business taxes in San Francisco in a generation, which is probably for most means what to most of the time most people can remember. Exactly what you said. Businesses for a long time where they did not appreciate the fact that the city's business tax was based on a calculation off of how much payroll that business had in San Francisco. They felt that that was a disincentive to create more jobs, and particularly during our last recession, that was a real sensitive issue. So the business community worked with the city leadership, and including the mayor and many members of the Board of Supervisors, business, as I mentioned, and many of the labor organizations, pretty broad, very wide support. A measure was created to change the business tax away from being based on a business's payroll amount to being based on a business's gross receipts, or how much revenue they brought in San Francisco. And that was put before the voters now 2 years ago, and it passed overwhelmingly with over 70% of the voters. And so now, yes, our office is in the process of making that change. I want people to understand this is the first year that businesses will be filing a form and paying some taxes based on their gross receipts in San Francisco, but it is a gradual phase-in. This year and for 4 more years after this, there's a 5-year phase-in in total where they'll be paying some taxes on payroll and then some taxes on gross receipts.
And I understand your office is trying to streamline it for some of the smaller businesses in San Francisco.
Absolutely. We know that any change can be challenging for folks and sometimes be confusing. We want to make it as understandable and easy to manage as possible. And though we have approximately 100,000 businesses here in San Francisco, the overwhelming majority of those are small businesses, some of them very, very small. And we want to make sure that they understand that if their business is small and it's all contained here in San Francisco, they can actually use an easy form we've created that we actually call Form EZ.
Very nice.
And they ought to be able to complete that maybe in as little as 10 minutes or less.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really impressive. Now, is this supposed to generate the same amount of tax revenue? Are we going to see a decrease now that we've moved to the new system?
The revenue targets for the gross receipts tax are based on a calculation that's similar to what the city brought in for its business tax previously. There's a number of formulas that are managed by the city out of the controller's office that actually look at how much revenue is coming in during the phase-in period of the gross receipts tax. The measure did have some increases that were put in place for a couple of specific reasons. I believe one of them was affordable housing goals. And also, there was an increase put in place in addition to the change to gross receipts tax. There was an increase on the annual business registration fees that cities paid. That business registration fee or tax had not been changed for many, many, many years. And so that did get increased as well.
Now, how has this been received by the business community? I could imagine a business, maybe a financial institution, where you have lots of revenue and very few employees who are pretty happy maybe just paying payroll tax, and now they've got to pay based on revenue. What's the response been? Quickly.
Well, honestly, we've been doing everything we can to let businesses know that this change is happening. So we've been doing a lot of outreach, multi-language outreach to businesses large and small. We've been meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, all sorts of business organizations. We've been doing everything we can to let people know this change is coming and that it is going to affect their businesses. Now, as you say, some businesses might see eventually their tax bill increase. Others might see it stay the same or even decrease. So I really do think that it's going to be different for each different organization. We encourage everybody to take a look at the law, understand how it's going to affect their business, make sure that they know what they have to file during this filing period, because the deadline's going to come up quick. It's actually the end of February.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Treasurer Cisneros, for being here. For Bay Sunday, I'm Melissa Griffin Caen.
Thank you, Melissa. Up next, a man whose life was transformed through the love of his wife as she battled breast cancer. It's a great story. It's coming up next. Stay right there.